The Wayans Brothers are officially back in the Scary Movie franchise, and that's a reason to celebrate. Because despite David Zucker taking over the series and making it considerably more airplane, it clearly went off the rails from what people liked. What started as a parody of Scream and then ghost movies became a mishmash of so many pop culture references that it was hard to keep up. And the films in its sights, War of the Worlds, The Grudge remake, and The Village, yeah, we're clearly pulling from the best of the decade here. So join us here at JoBlo Horror Originals as we revisit Scary Movie 4.
Nice hearing from you, Carlos.
You want to switch?
Okay.
Back in the mid-2000s, after the success of Scary Movie 3, Miramax gave the green light to a fourth entry, and with that success meant bringing back director David Zucker and screenwriters Craig Mazin and Pat Proft. But with the parody history that Zucker brought to the table, they also brought in writer Jim Abrahams, who'd written and/or directed parody films like Airplane, Top Secret, The Naked Gun, and the Hot Shots films. Everything seemed in place to eclipse the third film. Heh. Scary Movie 4 was originally intended to be the final entry in the series, so producers made sure to bring back all of the key players from the last film, even if their roles were quite different. Anna Faris returned for the role of Cindy Campbell, but she apparently didn't even want to sign on. Thankfully, a $1 million paycheck convinced her otherwise. Despite having nearly equal screen time to Anna Faris in the third film, Charlie Sheen and Simon Rex are relegated to mere cameo roles here. An odd choice given that Faris's Cindy and Rex's George got together at the end of 3. But Scary Movie has been known for not exactly following the events of their prior films.
I thought you were dead. Oh, I thought you were dead too.
Hell, Brenda died in the last one and she's back and as alive as ever.
Is it too late for me to try this on?
And without George, we've got character actor Craig Bierko stepping into the role of Cindy's new love interest. And after Kevin Hart and Anthony Anderson stood out so much from their first appearance, they were brought back and given even bigger roles, which included this very strange Brokeback Mountain storyline. Homophobes beware. We've also got Leslie Nielsen returning as the President of the United States, though no Ja Rule this time.
Who gives a fuck what Ja Rule thinks at a time like this, nigga? This is ridiculous.
He's instead replaced by stand-up comedian Alonzo Bowden. Nielsen doesn't really have the same impact as he does in the third entry, but at least we get this strange relationship with him and a duck. It's so random that it's actually kind of funny. The main films being parodied this time around include War of the Worlds, The Village, Saw, and The Grudge. Other planned parodies included House of Wax, Red Eye, and Wes Craven's Cursed, but they were all scrapped before filming commenced. It's too bad, as they were actually planning on having Paris Hilton and Alicia Cuthbert reprise their roles. This is really the time period where we start seeing these parody films become a strange amalgamation of themselves. Random pop culture moments like Tom Cruise jumping on the couch or Bush being told of the 9/11 attacks while reading to a group of school children all feature here. They're certainly not afraid to reach out of cinema for their jokes. But then again, despite being featured on the poster, there's no actual appearance from King Kong, so it may just be lack of planning. Like any of the Scary Movies, you're better off if you watch the films they've parodied. Otherwise, the subversions they're making from scene to scene won't exactly hit hard. Because Scary Movie 4 is very reliant on knowing these other films. And the ones that aren't are really silly sight gags.
You secured that tricky H500 unit, didn't you? Oh, come on, that was easy.
The movie starts out with a Saw parody between Shaq and Dr. Phil. It technically comes back around in the end, but it feels very disconnected from the main story. And if you think the production did a good job at recreating the Saw bathroom set, then you weren't the only ones, as the scene would actually end up having some significance in the actual Saw franchise, as producers asked to use the set for Saw 3. While they were hoping this would save in time and in money, it didn't really, as the production team had to rearrange the set to get it more accurate and dress it up all the same. Thankfully, they managed, and you can't really even tell the difference in the finished film. When we finally see what Cindy's up to, we find out that George has died in a tragic boxing accident that resembles $1 Million Baby. While Tom parallels Bill Pullman from The Grudge, and finds himself falling to his death. Kind of ironic given that Pullman appears later in this film. Cindy's look resembles Sarah Michelle Gellar from The Grudge, and she's in a similarly haunted house. Ironic given the fact that Cindy's parallel in 3 was Naomi Watts' character from The Ring, whose success paved the way for the Grudge reboot. And wouldn't you know it, this is when she meets her next-door neighbor, also named Tom, because apparently there aren't enough names to choose from. It's kind of shocking just how much of War of the Worlds is parodied here. This definitely serves as the backbone to Tom's entire story, from the storage container scene, to the alien's first appearance coming from the ground, all the way to the massive alien tripods. This really works as the through line for the movie, much like Scream was for the first film. But that doesn't mean we don't have others poking their heads in, despite being a mixed bag of a film for most. The filmmakers continued their M. Night Shyamalan shenanigans, this time focusing on The Village. Here we get two pretty surprising returns to the franchise, Carmen Electra and Chris Elliott. Carmen Electra, of course, played Drew from the opening of Scary Movie 1, and Chris Elliott played Hanson the Butler in Scary Movie 2. Neither returned in the same roles and are actually supposed to represent characters from The Village, played by Bryce Dallas Howard and Adrian Brody, though Elliott certainly has some similar qualities.
Vagina!
It's impressive how quickly they speedrun through the story of The Village, when it could have easily just been a one-off joke. By the time we get a recreation of the fantastic basement sequence from War of the Worlds, we get Michael Madsen as a parody of the Tim Robbins character, though he pretty much just acts like himself with a few quirks. Once they're captured, the film goes back to being a Saw parody for a bit, with their own version of the Venus flytrap from Saw 2. Eventually, it's revealed that the alien invasion was actually the works of the puppet, and we get a connection to our seemingly random opening scene.
I want to play a game.
And interesting fact, the voice of the puppet is actually provided by Craig Mazin, the screenwriter of this, as well as the creator of the Last of Us TV series. The alien invasion ends unceremoniously, and all of our heroes live happily ever after. Except for the fact that Brenda sleeps with the puppet's brother Zoltar and gets pregnant with his baby. What an ending. The biggest thing that Scary Movie 4 highlights is how hollow all of the humor is. While the first 3 films certainly had their share of crass jokes, so much of the humor here is simply dumb, and honestly pretty f***ing racist.
Shit!
Haro? Hibachi Benihana Teriyaki.
Humor is absolutely subjective, and I'm a fan of inappropriate humor, but yeesh. That's not to say all the jokes suck. There are still some that can stir a chuckle.
You suffered a heart attack, brought on by this knife.
But overall, the laughs are few and far between.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
Scary Movie 4 released in the United States on April 14, 2006, and brought in just over $40 million on its opening weekend. The film would end its worldwide run at over $178 million. Critics were not kind to the film, and it received a 34% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with the consensus being that it was sure to inspire a few chuckles, but not enough to compensate for the recycled material from its predecessors. The popcorn meter wasn't much better, with audiences giving it a measly 51% rotten. Despite the critical thrashing, and the idea 4 being the last entry, money talks in Hollywood, and a 5th film released in 2013 that makes this film look like a masterpiece. Anna Faris refused to return, and look, it's just really bad. Please don't make me do it. My mental health can't take it. Wait, what? No.